Salvete discipuli. This video is on the second declension. And the first declension, they were feminine words, mostly in the first declension. And they ended, the nominative form ended in A, and the genitive in I. And we talked about how the genitive is like that telltale sign for what a second or for what a first declension word is. So we're going to look at the second declension, and the second declension includes masculine words and neuter words. And we're going to take a look at the endings that go for each of the, or that are used for each of the cases. Now, there's two charts set up here. We only needed one chart when we did the first declension, but in the second declension, there's two charts because masculine words are going to have a particular set of endings, and neuter words are going to have a very similar set of endings. They're so similar that they're both second declension words. They both belong to the second declension, but there's just some slight differences that'll be easy to understand. Okay. Also, in the second declension, there are going to be two separate tests. One on just the masculine words, okay? And so we're not going to be looking at neuter words, and then all of the exercises, or I should say a few exercises, a few consecutive exercises are only going to look at masculine words, and then they'll probably pull in some first declension words too. And then we'll introduce the neuter words and say, okay, now these are some different ones, and then we'll give some exercises that use masculine and neuter side by side. And then the second test is going to be masculine and neuter words side by side. Okay? So I just want you to know I'm not going to give them both to you right off the bat. You're only going to get masculine. Okay? So let's take a look at the masculine words. Masculine words, the nominatives, are going to end in us. And so we can see that in some of our vocab. Filius is son. Deus is the word for God. If we're talking about Roman gods, we're not going to capitalize the D in Deus or any of the other endings that it has. And if we see God with a lowercase d, we're going to know that that's referring to like Mars or Jupiter or some other god. Okay. So the second declension genitive ending is e. So filius, filii means of the Son. Dei means of God. Us, e, o. It's going to be and o. Here we're going to have e as our ending. So filii can also mean sons. Filii can mean of the Son, or filii can mean sons. Orum, is, os, is. Now, the song that we're going to use, so remember there was a video which had a song for the first declension. Okay? There's going to be a song for the second declension. It's going to be the same tune for masculine and neuter. Okay? But the song is going to be different. It's going to be to the tune of Jingle Bells. Okay? And so, I'm going to sing it for you, and we're going to begin several classes singing the song to memorize these endings in order. Because if we can memorize these endings in order, it's going to help you immensely on all the homeworks, and it's going to help you on the tests as well. Okay, so here we go. Os I o o, I orum is os is. Os I o, I orum is os is. So we're going to do that several times. I want you to sing that to yourself when you go to bed at night. I want you to sing that to yourself if you're driving in the car. Sing it to yourself all the time, every chance you get. If you think about it, if it ever pops into your mind, treat that as an opportunity to sing the song to yourself. Us I o, I is os is, and it won't take too many times before you've got them all memorized. Okay, before we go on and look at the rest of the vocab, let's take a look and let's identify some patterns here. Okay, let's identify some patterns. Let's identify ways in which these endings are similar to the first declension endings. Okay, so I'm looking, and first thing I notice is that the genitive plural has arum, and this has orum, so that's pretty easy, right? And then we think of a as a feminine word, and we think of o as masculine, so that makes sense why it's orum now and not arum. This was I, okay, so this has and not So again, the accusative both ends in m. And then for the accusative plural, it was as, right? Like nautas, yo video, nautas, I see sailors. Now it's os. So again, makes sense. Here, arum, is, as, is. Oh, look, it's is, and it was is and is in both of these two places, and now it's still is and is, so that's good. Let's see, we had arum. So here we had I in both of these spots. Now it's E in both of those spots. Now the dative was also I, so now the dative is singular. Now all three of these spots here are not the same like they were in the first declension. Okay, so those are just some of the ways in which the first declension and the second declension are the same, okay, or have patterns to them. So this shouldn't be completely new to learn these new endings, all right? So these are some of our words in the first declension. Filius, meaning son. We have Deus, is God. So gladius is the next one, and gladius means sword. One of our words from the first declension was Gallia, Gallia, and Gallia means Gaul, which is what the area that is now France. Okay, so Gallus just means a Gaul, like a person from Gaul. And so when we talk about the land, when we talk about the place, we're going to use Gallia, Gallii, and then we're going to follow all the first declension rules. But if we're talking about a person from that land, we're going to use Gallus, Galli, and we're going to put these endings on. Okay, so we're just going to put a Gaul. This a is going to remind us that we're not talking about the land Gaul. We're talking about the person, a Gaul. Okay, and amicus, amici is friend. Okay, now this is not the whole list. Let's see, there's Christus, Christi, which is Christ, and then there's Christianus, Christiani, which is Christian. And so we're going to look for this ion, okay? Because that's one thing that gets mixed up a lot. Christus and Christianus. Should be pretty easy because of the IAN, but sometimes people still mix it up, okay? So Christ and a Christian. So let's take one of these words and let's fully decline it. Let's take the word Deus because it's nice and short. So nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, ablative. Okay. Sorry, there we go. Okay. So we already know Deus. If we can see Deus Dei, then we know the first two. Okay, this means God, when God is the subject of the sentence. Dei means of God. Deo. So if I'm giving something to God or doing something for God, then Deo is the word that I use. All right, the accusative, Deum. So if I see God or if I hear God, yo video Deum, or yo audio Deum, or ego audio Deum. I said yo, like it's Spanish. Ego audio Deum. And then Deo again, because the O shows up 2 times. So another translation of the word Deo could mean with God, by means of God. Okay, Dei, Deorum. Now, actually, what I should do here is uncapitalize these words because if we're talking about plural gods, we can't be talking about the one God. We have to be talking about, Roman gods, things like that. So these plurals should always be not capital. And that can be another way to distinguish between, because Dei shows up 2 times. If we see an uncapitalized Dei, we know that it's the plural one and it's not the genitive singular one. Now you could certainly use genitive singular, with a Roman god or something like that. Still, but you can't use an uncapitalized with God. So that could help us when we're translating sentences. All right, Deis, Deos, Deis. Okay, so we have non-capital in the plural. All right, and then we would do the same for any other word. All right, so we're going to take a look at one sentence with these new words. Christiani, Mariam, laudant. Okay, is our first sentence. And right away I can see that Christiani, there's 2 E endings. So are we talking about Christians or are we talking about of the Christian? Well, in my verb over here, praise, this is an NT ending, so that means they praise. So this is probably the plural of Christian. It's probably Christians. It's not of the Christian, right? So this is saying the Christians where you could just say it means Christians, praise. And then over here we have Mariam, and they're praising Mary. Mary is in the accusative. Now notice this is using a first declension ending, an am. It's using this ending, but it's not it's am because it's a first declension word. And she's the object of the praise. Okay, so the Christians praise Mary, or just simply Christians praise Mary. Okay. Now at this point in the video, I'm gonna switch over to neuter. But if you're re-watching these videos, or if you're watching them, from home or watching them for the first time, the idea is not that you would get both of these all at once. The idea is that you would get the masculine and then spend some time working with the masculine, doing some of the exercises. And then once you're more comfortable using all of these words and all of the different endings, then you would go on and do the neuter, okay? But for the sake of getting all of the second declension into one video, I'm going to go on. Okay, so neuter words are a little bit different. Neuter words in the nominative end in Okay, we're still going to have e, as it shows here, as the genitive singular ending. Okay, so e, o, o. Now, with the plurals, they're going to be a little bit different. Is often used as a plural for neuter words. Okay, so oppidum, which means town, oppida is going to mean towns. So aurum, is, is. I want to show you something called the neuter rule. The neuter rule just states that for words that are neuter, the nominative and the accusative are going to match. Do the nominative and the accusative match here? Yes, they do. And that also has to be true over on the plural side. And they match. So the nominative plural and the accusative plural match each other. So that's what we call the neuter rule. They match. Nominatives and the accusatives have to match. Okay, so oppida can mean towns, but it can also mean it can also mean like I see towns, right? It still has e as the genitive singular ending, so which means they're both belonging to the second declension. Okay, let's take a look at some other neuter words. Bellum means war, so bella is wars. Belli is of the war. Bellorum would be of the wars. Caelum means either sky, if it's not capital, or heaven, if it's capital. Of course, it could also be capital if it means sky and it's the first word of a sentence. Regnum, forgot my macron, means either royal power or kingdom. So it means kingdom, or can also mean royal power or authority. Praemium means prize or reward. And imperium, imperi is another second declension neuter word, which means empire, empire or reign. And if we take a look at another sentence, this time I'm going to give a sentence that has a bunch of words, some second declension words as well, second declension neuter words as well. So we're going to mix neuter and masculine together. Okay. I'm just looking for a good sentence here. Okay, here's a good one. Number 2. Deus bella non laudat. So we have Deus, which looks nominative, singular, and it's capital. So it's God. Now, it's also the first word in the sentence. So It could also mean the god, like a Roman god. Here, though, it is actually meaning God. So what's he doing? He's praising. Oh, no, he's not praising. And so it's always good to look at the ending of the verb and just make sure that it matches what we think is the subject. Now, this is kind of a simple sentence, but sentences can get longer and a little bit more complex too. So that's a good practice to just kind of look at what we think the subject is and then match it. Because sometimes we might see an ANT and we might say, oh no, like that's not the subject. Maybe the subject is further into the sentence. So Deus bella non laudat, they do match because this is a he, she, it, a singular verb. So God is not praising whatever this is. Now this has to be in the accusative, right? Now in neuter, it is in the accusative. It is an accusative. It's an accusative plural. So he's not praising some things. He's not praising wars. So God doesn't praise wars is what this sentence is saying. So we have a second declension masculine word with a second declension neuter word together. And so we might see some sentences that have a mixture of words. We might even see some that have first declension words. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that you're following the set of rules that each word needs when we do that. So we don't want to be thinking of just one chart and then thinking, okay, all the endings of every word in a sentence have to be one chart. No, we're going to use the several charts that we've learned simultaneously wherever we need them. So that is your review video on the second declension.